Welcome back to Reel 21, where I'm watching my way through the New York Times 100 Best Movies of the 21st Century, one film at a time in countdown order. I'm Nathan Chandler, and today we're at number 95 with The Worst Person in the World, directed by Joachim Trier. Now, before we jump into this movie, as some of you might see, this is my first official video podcast. Once again, Movies Are Life. It's a one-man show here, but I'm going the way of technology. I started in video production a long time ago, so it's in my wheelhouse. But that said, there's a lot of things that aren't in place that I hope will be soon. But this will be a new element to the Movies Are Life podcast, and I'm really excited. And so I was going to wait a little bit, but I thought, might as well jump into it. And so I won't be re-recording the previous episodes of Reel 21, but just thought I'd jump into this wonderful movie. And for the occasion, I had to wear my Thunder shirt. It is indeed NBA playoff season time, and I do believe we will repeat as NBA champs, and I'm really excited. There's a game being played later tonight, but I won't talk about that because, yes, this is a movie podcast, not a sports podcast. But any of my listeners, if you ever want to talk NBA, basketball, the Thunder, or actually most other sports, I am your guy. So feel free to reach out. Okay, so let's jump back into this movie. Now, The Worst Person in the World, it's one of those films that when it came out in 2021, you probably heard about it, especially if you follow film circles, even a little bit. It wasn't necessarily a massive mainstream hit, but it built a strong reputation pretty quickly. Critics loved it, audiences connected with it, and it helped solidify Joachim Trier as a filmmaker to watch. Especially if you paid attention, his other big film, Sentimental Value, came out last year and got a lot of good Oscar buzz. Won the Best International Feature and was nominated as a Best Picture as well. So he's definitely has made a name for himself. So revisiting it now, I did have the question of, does this film still feel essential? The film follows Julie, played by Renate Reinsve. Also, I want to note that this was probably not the best movie to choose as my first video podcast because international pronunciations, that's not quite in my wheelhouse, but I'm going to do my best here. But Renate Reinsve, and I apologize if I'm butchering that. So Julie, it follows Julie over the course of about 4 years as she navigates her late 20s into her early 30s. And on the surface, this premise is pretty simple. She's caught between two relationships trying to figure out her career, her identity, and ultimately what she wants her life to be. But like a lot of great films, the simplicity is kind of the point. Because this isn't really a love triangle movie, it's a movie about becoming, about that stage in life where everything still feels open, but also increasingly urgent, where the choices you make start to carry real weight. Julie is someone who's constantly shifting. She changes careers, relationships, even her sense of self. And that can make her frustrating as a character, but instead she feels incredibly human because most of us at some point have been there, especially in that stage of life in your upper 20s, early 30s, where you're trying to figure things out. This was actually my second time watching The Worst Person in the World. And I'll be honest, it hit me harder this time. The first time, I truly appreciated it. I gave it 4 stars originally. I recognized what it was doing. But on rewatch, I found myself much more emotionally invested in the characters and the paths that they choose in this movie. There's something about coming back to the story with a little more life experience that makes it resonate differently, even though I watched it just a couple of years ago. Because at its core, this film is really about the tension between control and surrender. We like to think we can plan everything, map out our lives, make the right decisions, move forward with intention, but sometimes life doesn't work that way. Sometimes it forces your hand, and there's this idea the film builds toward almost like a quiet conclusion that somewhere in the middle of those two things is where life actually happens. And for Julie, that realization feels earned. It's messy, it's not perfect, but it leaves you with a sense of emotional resolution. Now, a big part why this works is the relationships in this movie. Julie's with Axel, played by Anders Danielson Lee, who represents stability, intellect, and a more grounded version of life. And then she meets, here we go, Ovid. And then she meets Ovid, played by Herbert Nordrum. He's more spontaneous, more emotionally open. And what I love about this is that the film doesn't frame it as a right or wrong choice. Instead, each relationship feels like a different version of Julie's future. And you understand why she's drawn to both. You probably do side with one of these guys who you like more, but I don't think you truly will dislike these two characters. On rewatch, Anders Danielson Lee really stood out to me. His performance as Axel is incredibly raw and vulnerable, especially in the later parts of the film. Some of those scenes hit in a way that's hard to shake. Reinsve, though, she's the centerpiece. She brings so much nuance to Julie. She balances charm, uncertainty, and frustration in a way that makes her feel completely real. Even when you don't agree with her choices, you understand them. Structurally, the film is broken into 12 chapters with a prologue and epilogue, and it really does feel like reading a novel. These snapshots of a life rather than one continuous arc. And visually, for the most part, it's pretty grounded. It's not a flashy film, but every now and then it takes these creative swings. And sometimes they really work. There's a scene, probably the one most people remember. The cover, the movie poster for this film uses a still frame from this scene many times. But it's a scene where Julie imagines the world stopping around her as she runs through the city. It's beautifully done. It captures that feeling of being at the center of a life-changing decision where everything else fades away. It's one of those moments that's both cinematic and deeply relatable. But then there are other stylistic choices that didn't land as much for me. There's a sequence later in the film involving Axel that feels visually out of step with everything else. It's real simple. He's just playing air drums in a hospital room. And I get what he was going for, but I don't know, it just felt odd. There's also a psychedelic scene that leans into Julie's internal anxiety. I personally have never taken mushrooms before, but this internal anxiety plays out, and particularly around the expectations of motherhood. I understand what Trier was going for in both of these cases, and I can see how they connect thematically, but for me, they pulled me out of the film just a little bit. That said, those moments are the exception, not the rule. So where do I ultimately land on the worst person in the world? I really liked it the first time. I can say I loved it the second time. This is one of those films that grows with you. The more life you've lived, the more it seems to meet you where you are. And after the second viewing, I have found myself thinking a lot about this movie. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's deeply human. And it represents a moment not just for its characters, but for its director as well. This is the film that really put Joachim Trier on the map for a wider audience. And based on what he's done since, especially with Sentimental Value that I mentioned earlier, it's clear that this wasn't a one-off. This is a filmmaker worth paying attention to. Okay, so let's wrap up this conversation or monologue with a few quick categories. Overall rating, I give this film 4.5 stars out of 5. The pop culture footprint, it's strong within cinephile circles. It's a defining modern international film that has elevated Joachim Trier's global recognition. The rewatchability, I give it 4.5 out of 5. You do have to be in kind of a certain emotional space to watch this film, but I think it deepens emotionally with each time you watch it with the time and perspective. Does it make you think? Absolutely. It explores themes of identity, timing, relationships, and the balance between control and surrender. Who can't relate to that? Is this a conversation starter? Yes, especially around Julie's choices and modern expectations of adulthood. Okay, so does this film hold up? Absolutely. I think it will definitely age over time, and I think this is a film that is easily revisitable. Where did I place it on this list? Right now, among the most essential character-driven dramas of the 21st century. It's quiet but deeply resonant. All right, so up next, we're going to head back into blockbuster territory with Minority Report, directed by Steven Spielberg. Until next time, keep watching, stay curious, and trust the list, at least for now.